St. Louis might be situated in a state that sounds like misery, but are there stadiums in a miserable state? Let's find out. Here are the stadiums and arenas of St. Louis, Missouri. Enterprise Center. For those that don't know, Enterprise is a car rental company, which got me thinking, it's always thrifty to have a naming rights sponsor, because it hurts not to. At one point in the mid-90s, this place was simultaneously home to 5 different teams, and was one of the busiest arenas in the country. Now it's just the Blues of the NHL that call this place home, and it's nowhere near the busiest. There's not too much to say about the design of the interior. In fact, perhaps the most interesting aspect to this arena is not actually part of the arena. You may have noticed earlier that it is attached to another building. It's actually a rather spectacular opera house called the Stifel Theatre. That opened in 1934. Those were black and white days, that's why it's monochromatic. It was closed for the first couple of decades of this arena's lifespan, before it was finally renovated and opened in 2011. The Dome at the Americas Center. St. Louis is currently one of the larger US cities without an NFL team. But as you may already know, it did have one not all that long ago called the St. Louis Rams. This was their home. However, they fled west to find fame and fortune, and the ocean, which left St. Louis with the potential of having a bit of a white elephant on its hands. At least the St. Louis Battlehawks of the UFL have put it to good use. Design-wise, it's similar to quite a few NFL stadiums of the not too distant past, although from street level it was intended to resemble some of the older government buildings in the city. The architects wanted it to fit in rather than stand out. I think they certainly achieved that. One thing that's for certain is that it looks absolutely nothing like the stadium that the Rams currently play in. But the Battlehawks don't have to share their stadium, so who's to say who has it better? CarShield Field. I like the sound of that. I also like the name of the team that plays here, the O'Fallon Hoots. Although the previous team that played here were called the River City Rascals, which is a slightly better name, as depicted on this chart. As for the ballpark itself, it is fairly simplistic, but as is often the case at minor league ballparks, there's a variety of different seating options, even some lawn seating. The ballpark is also used for soccer, but it's not professional soccer, just local youth soccer. Oh, and for those that own a helicopter, there is parking available for you. You just have to make sure you don't crush any children, because it's not an actual helipad, but they won't mind. Herman Stadium. The St. Louis Billikens haven't had a football team since the late 40s, but they do have a men's and women's soccer team, who play at this rather nice, albeit basic, soccer stadium. There's a decent amount of brickwork used throughout, most notably the facade of the main stand, and I also appreciate that the field is natural grass. That stuff doesn't just grow on trees, you know. In true college style, there is no covered seating in the house, but no big deal. Shaefer Arena. This shiny metal panel and red brick clad arena is home to the Billikens, of course, but the first event to take place here was a match between the Harlem Globetrotters and the Washington Generals. I wasn't able to ascertain who won that game, unfortunately, but I think the Globetrotters were strong favourites going into it. This place has plenty in the way of amenities, less so in the way of character. It's pretty sterile in here. Rather than a centre-hung video board, there is a large screen in each corner, which is basically just as good. It also rules out the chance that one of those big centre-hung boards falls from the ceiling, which has actually happened elsewhere several times before. That would be a sight to behold. Busch Stadium. It is fitting that a baseball stadium is named after Busch, because like the many baseballs that are deposited into the stands here, Anheuser-Busch has taken some hits in recent times, but it's a company that has a long association with the Cardinals. This ballpark was actually built right next door to its predecessor, which was also called Busch Stadium, and you'll never guess the name of the stadium that preceded that. Sportsman's Park, later known as Busch Stadium. Plenty of major league ballparks have a spectacular backdrop, but just one has a view of the Gateway Arch, the symbol of St. Louis. Nobody knows what it's for, but it looks cool. To be fair, no matter how good the architects are, it's going to be pretty hard to achieve a view of the Gateway Arch from Boston. Maybe Kansas City if you use some large mirrors and a magnifying glass, and maybe... What on earth am I talking about? Anyway, I honestly think MLB ballparks are some of my favourite stadiums, and this happens to be one of the nicer ones. Family Arena. Ironically, Family Arena looks rather lonely, although there is a little amusement park next door. It is a fairly generic design with an unremarkable exterior and inside a fairly basic interior. It was just built to get the job done, and not be some sort of landmark. It has hosted various teams over the years, but they haven't really stuck around for all that long, barring the current tenant, who are the stalwart at this venue. I'm talking about St. Louis Ambush, who have been here for over a decade. They're an indoor soccer team, so they're probably not bringing in the big money for the arena, but you know, it looks like they can fill the bottom tier at least. The Ambush's colour scheme is very distinctive. You don't see teal and pink together very often. City Park is the home of St. Louis City, who are the newest Major League Soccer team. They were the first female majority-owned team in the league. For a few months in 2022, before the stadium opened, it was named Centene Stadium. That deal fell through, which is a good thing I think, because City Park is a much nicer name. And I don't know what Centene is. Anyway, not important. This stadium was designed to be very open. From some seats you even get a bit of a view out to the city, whilst every seat in the house is under the cover of this extensive roof, which is made from a clear plastic so there are no dark and dingy parts of the interior. The southern stand, which is separate from the rest of the stadium, was built right at the end of what is known as the Gateway Mall, which is not a shopping centre but a long linear green space that runs through the city, starting at the aforementioned Gateway Arch. Worldwide Technology Soccer Park. Ironically, this is one of the least technologically advanced stadiums in the city. You might be surprised to hear, considering the stadium's tiny capacity, that it has hosted several international matches involving the US men's national team, who have never lost a game here. To be fair, most of those games were against small Central American countries, but one was against Canada. Speaking of Busch, Anheuser-Busch once owned this stadium. That's no longer the case. Oh, and in case you haven't caught on by now, Anheuser-Busch is based in St. Louis. Across the Mississippi River in Madison, Illinois, is Wide World Technology Raceway, which hosts NASCAR and IndyCar events. It's actually situated on land that in the past was underneath the Mississippi River. That's why it gets the nickname of the Swamp. But they drained the swamp, presumably using burly paper towels, and sure enough there happened to be a raceway under the water. Who'da thunk it? There's not a whole lot to say about the architectural qualities of this venue, but I do like this section of checkered seating, that's a nice touch. So there you have it, misery schmisery. Thanks for watching, have a good one.